kind of how it became with acting. You kind of have to be the writer, the producer, the director, and the actor to now create success for yourself. You can't just be the actor. Like, that's not enough anymore. And I feel like it's very similar with being a realtor. You've got to pretty much do it all.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Business of Homes podcast. I'm Michael Conrad, and I am so fortunate because I get to bring you great stories about real estate professionals all over Middle Tennessee who are finding their way to success by all sorts of different means and backgrounds. And of course, the thing that undergirds it all is what we're talking about here on this podcast, and that is the entrepreneurship and the business behind homes and behind real estate. And so today we have Shannon Surgener with me, who is an amazing person, an accomplished actress, and now a successful realtor out of the Hendersonville-Gallatin area. And I'm actually fortunate enough to have known her before she was a realtor. She actually got a chance to work with me at one of my companies for a while. And we got to know each other, and I was very fortunate enough to have been part of her story and very excited to see her success now. So Shannon, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Shannon, one of the things I know and remember that we connected on early on was this idea that as former or current actors, you bring a certain experience and background to whatever professional setting that you're in. Being an actor seems easy to some, but obviously there's a lot of complexity in it. And I always find it interesting when actors find their way into business and other things because they bring a certain light and an excitement and certainly a showmanship to the table. And I think you are still doing a lot of auditioning and acting. That's a former life for me, but that was something we connected on really early on. And now that we're both in business and sort of making our way in real estate, I think we bring a lot of that in. And I was kind of hoping to hear some more of your background for our audience and like how you're bringing in some of those old talents and skills into this sort of new world that you live in.
Yeah, I never would have thought that my acting would be applicable in like a sales role, but I didn't realize until actually I started working with you that there's a lot of things that really overlap and are quite valuable in a sales role. And so my background, a little bit about me, for those of you who aren't familiar with acting, I did a 2-year Meisner program. And Meisner, one of the things they really focus on is you take the focus off yourself and you place it on the other person, and you just become really curious about that person. And it's really to, one, make you present and more interesting because you're really truly in the moment and reacting to what that other person is giving you. And so I think that in itself really, I think, paid off a lot in future roles in sales because you're really just having to become, I feel like one of the main things they say when you're going out there and you're building relationships and creating meaningful connections is like, take the interest off yourself, become really interested in the other person, right? Like that was one of the things that I know we talked about a lot in my role with your company is like, when you go to meet these agents out here, don't talk about yourself. Like it's all about them. Like learn as much as you can about them. And so I think that that's something that I had no idea that, I don't know if you've ever read the book, Big Leap by Gay Hendricks.
No.
Okay. So it's a really cool concept. He talks about your zone of genius. And I think that's something that I have discovered through transitioning from the acting world into sales is like my, I guess, superpower, if you will, of just being able to take the focus off myself, truly becoming more interested in that other person. And that's, I think, one thing that I took away from Meisner that helped me in sales.
I love that because if we begin to think of ourselves in the world of business as trying to deliver the same high quality product or service over and over, it's very natural for us. It's very human, ironically enough, for us to slip into these ruts, to become these sort of accidental automatons or robots who are delivering a set of values or bullet points or even delivering a set of lines. You say sort of the same things to a buyer client or to a listing presentation. You kind of say those same things over and over and over. If you look at the long view of it, like the stuff that you used in your listing presentation evolves, but the big bullet points don't. And so how do you keep the information fresh? And thereby, how do you keep your relevance fresh to that prospective buyer or that prospective seller in the future? Well, it's like you said, you got to keep the focus on them. And the way you termed it, be curious. This is a great encouragement to our listener audience because curiosity is essentially selfless.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you can be curious about yourself, I suppose, but curious about others allows you to be selfless. And we are so essentially selfish as human beings that it's very natural for us to get into this place where me, here's what I've done. Here's why you should work with me. Here's all my accolades. Here's all the reasons. Here's my logic, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, if you're really digging into that other person, you're probably going to find your way to a really natural relationship born out of trust. And we all know who we want to be working with, people who know us, like us, trust us.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's something I didn't even realize, you know, when I got into sales is like just that aspect of it being really huge. But also I think another major thing that, you know, we were talking about before we started this podcast, like acting, how much people don't see behind the scenes of like what that person had to do to get on that TV show or to, you know, get to where they're at in acting. There's so much that people don't see, the behind the scenes work that's happening. And one of those things is what I told myself as an actor is like 99% of my job was to be told no. Because when you book something, that's the vacation, right? You know?
Sweet.
And so I think I already came in knowing that like part of sales is being told no. Like that rejection piece is huge. And I think a lot of people shy away from doing the things like cold calling or door knocking because part of it is they don't want to be told no. They don't want to get rejected. They don't want to feel the pain of getting the phone hung up in their face or the door slammed in their face, right? But if you're coming from an industry where that's literally your job, you've gotten used to being told no. I think that also has helped me a lot to just be able to put myself out there and not be afraid of, you know, getting rejected essentially. So,
yeah. I have been obsessed with this phrase that someone mentioned to me recently, and it's really helped put me in I think a healthy mindset in my day-to-day business. They said, the game of baseball is a game of failures. And I was like, wait, what?
Interesting.
Okay, so every move that's being made on the field that's good by someone is a failure by someone else. And so if you play that game, you're going to end up with just a really high level of data points of failure in your game. Doesn't mean you can't be successful. The most successful batters in baseball miss the ball 2/3 of the time, right? And so I think you could say entrepreneurship, business, and definitely real estate specifically is a game of failures. And if you don't go in with an open mind, an open heart, maybe some thick skin, and be willing to sort of live into those failures as learning experiences or as like guardrails, bumper rails. I'm playing bumper bowling. I know all the ways to not hit the bumpers now because I just hit the bumpers, but I'm going to get all the way down towards the end. And so I love that. And I, as a former actor, definitely take that away of you hear no enough and you start to realize, oh, I guess it's not really about me.
Yeah.
It's really just about whatever else it's about, but it's not about me.
Yeah.
So I can divorce or uncouple myself from that no and that like personal like assault that you kind of feel.
Yes.
And you're right. We need more of that in the real estate business because it's a numbers game at the end of the day, just like acting.
Right. And I'd say acting is probably worse because, I mean, you really have to have the stamina of the long-term game because, I mean, you really could do everything in your power of, you know, becoming a good actor, working on your craft, doing all these things, and you're not guaranteed anything. I think in real estate, it's a little different in that you can, if you put in the work and you create good systems, like you will eventually see the results of that. It might not be on your timeline. It might not be in like 3 months. It may take 6 months to a year, but eventually you're going to see something from that. But I think it's keeping that stamina. And like you said, like knowing those failures don't mean like, you know, it's the end. It's just one step closer to what you're working towards.
Well, now it's my turn to say that is something I learned from you when we got a chance to work together.
Okay.
Is that I always knew it was a numbers game, but sometimes I got my emotions really wrapped up in it. I still do. And so you were good when we were working together about reminding me that if you keep grinding, the numbers will bear out. And perhaps in this larger conversation about all the similarities between being an actor and being a real estate professional, this is one of those things that is actually not similar, is that you're right. In the world of like fame and Hollywood and all that, luck plays an outsized role. Too big of a role to even quantify and or comfortably talk about. But in real estate, yes, there is a little luck present, but mostly there's grind. And if you put in the effort and knock those doors, send those email blasts, network, work your sphere of influence, like all this stuff, it will bear out. It is more formulaic like that. And that's one of the things that you were good and to encourage me. And like, cause I was like, yeah, Shannon, it's a numbers game. And you're like, yeah, but no, but if I actually keep grinding, it will bear out. And so that was cool. And a great reminder for all of us that real estate can feel like luck, especially I feel like beginner's luck hits hard in real estate. And I know it's just because when you wake up on the scene as a real estate professional, your sphere of influence is like, cool, here's all of our referrals. And then that kind of dries up. And so then you got to go into that grind, but it will bear out, but you got to put in the work.
Yeah. I was going to say, going into acting is definitely not for people who need validation.
But that's what we're seeking, of course.
It's, because like you really can take it personal. Like you're not, getting those parts and those roles. And I think it's very parallel in real estate. You see like, oh, that person went with that realtor. Like, oh, okay.
What's wrong with me?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, so I think it could really be easy to fall into that trap. And so, yeah, you really have to got to keep a strong mindset for sure.
But yet here we are at another thing that's not super similar. Like personality brands very much exist in real estate, no doubt. And sometimes people, consumers are buying the personality brand. That exists. That's real. However, because it is more business and should ever be more business oriented, you can begin to erect sort of around you a set of values or a set of beliefs or a set of actions or a set of like benefits that a client or an experience that a client will receive as the you, quote unquote, that they're buying into. It's not you, the person that they're buying into. In fact, hopefully, if you're doing it right, it's less and less about you. You're bringing a solid team around you. Maybe you're part of a larger team where you're benefiting from that sort of brand recognition. And so it's not as personal. It might feel a little bit personal because we live in a more Instagram-oriented age in real estate than we have before, but it's really not. And maybe that is one of the big connections in today's conversation, that we're connecting to this larger narrative in this podcast about the importance of treating your profession more like a business than a job or a profession. It's something that you need to have some kind of cold, hard conversations and calculations with yourself on in which to be successful. Because if it's just about taking pretty pictures and putting them on Instagram or like hitting that stroke of luck with that big listing, like it's going to dry up at some point.
Right. Yeah, I think it's more important now than ever to have systems in place and to really know what your worth is and your value, especially with the recent NAR settlement. I know that's like a hot topic right now. Like, I think that the agents that have already had a system in place where they're doing those buyer consultations right up front, they're not going to have any issues. But the people who, kind of are just like flying by the seat of their pants, submitting that, buyer rep with the offer, it's going to be a bit of a transition for sure.
It is. And just like in the world of acting, you have a sort of probably a more narrower range of value than maybe you think you do. I know a lot of real estate professionals are like, I sell anywhere. I sell any type of product. But the truth is you're probably better at a narrower set of things than not. And sometimes you just don't qualify to be the right person for the job in that particular case. Like sometimes not getting the part, so to speak, isn't really about you. It's about the criteria that was being used to find the you, whoever that is. And so, yes, expand your offerings, expand your knowledge. We've talked a lot about that on this podcast of be more relevant to a wider set of audience by increasing your knowledge, increasing your certifications, and being that deeper Wikipedia of the world of like real property. But know that you're going to have limitations. If you live one place, you're going to know that place better than say another place.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I live in Hendersonville, so most of my business has been in Hendersonville and Gallatin.
Nice.
Although I would love to work more in Nashville. I mean, it's happened a little bit, but not as much as Hendersonville. So I feel like that is kind of where my space has started to grow more and like where I have more knowledge because I live there. So I can't get mad if like someone doesn't want to use me in Franklin. It just doesn't make sense.
So you talked a little bit ago about this idea of the behind the scenes, like the larger part of the iceberg than what's immediately visible to people. And I find it funny and ironic and difficult and hard to wrap your mind around that. yes, both actors and real estate professionals, their job is to almost make it look easy on purpose or natural or organic, when in reality, there's a lot of work to it. And certainly the NAR settlement is highlighting a mismatch between what the realtor community is feeling like the value they provide versus the consumer community, which is feeling like the value they receive. And so this mismatch can be very difficult, I think, for people to reconcile, because it makes you say, well, what am I really offering? Yeah. So what is something that you're doing specifically that's kind of the little duck feet under the water that no one's seeing, where you're swimming really hard? What is the stuff behind the scenes that maybe isn't as obvious, but is providing like a real value for the world around you?
I think going back to the team, like you bringing up, like having that team around you, having those different contacts, like when your clients are needing, I don't even know, like blinds installed, or, they're needing some referrals, like contractors for things in their house, or they're needing an explanation on their title policy, having like all of these people in your Rolodex, just like within seconds to be able to like refer. I think that's huge right there. Because yeah, technically, I feel like this is true for a lot of things. Like technically anybody can probably go on and like Google things and try to do the research themselves. But I think a big value that a realtor brings to a client on the buy side, for instance, is being able to simplify that process and being able to have all that information ready to go for them, so that they're not having to really do much. You're really just guiding them through that process. So I think for me, I'm, still a baby in the industry, still learning really what my value is. But I think so far that is what I have realized is my major value, is having access to being able to connect all these different people to the client that they need.
Totally agree. I think that your referral network, and that is wide, from restaurants to title attorneys, I mean, everything in between. Your referral network is probably one of the last true great currencies of the real estate professional. It's really difficult to get it, so that means it has value. It's pretty different from person to person, so that value is unique to you. And it's very difficult to disrupt it with technology in a focused way. You're right. You can just Google what's the best restaurant or what's the best title company, and you're going to get a version of the answer. But if you want something that's more essentially human, the computer, even good old ChatGPT, cannot fully replace that. And I feel like in the world of technological disruption in real estate, that the currency, the thing you offer in trade to a client, the currency of referrals remains super strong, and one of the last great currencies that hasn't been disrupted by technology. And so it always bums me out a little bit when agents are nervous about giving out referrals, whatever type they are, because they're worried about maybe a negative experience that might reflect poorly on them. And it's just a mindset thing. I mean, gosh darn it, we're back at mindset. But like, it's a mindset of like, no, I'm going to live into trusting the referrals that I do give out. I'm going to know how to grade and like keep good referrals in my Rolodex, or point people in the right direction. I guess if you kind of go back to a really old school analogy, the Dewey Decimal System and those little card catalogs and libraries, that was not where the information was. But to face the reality of having to search the entire library for the specific book or piece of information you needed was too daunting. It wasn't that we had a shortage of information, and we definitely don't have a shortage of information now in the world of Google and ChatGPT and all that kind of stuff, but parsing through it, knowing how to find it, knowing how to contextualize it or make it relevant to you, that part is super hard. So somewhere between the card catalog and the Rolodex, we have to be the person who is directing that traffic through relationship. Trust me, I'm the real estate professional. I'm your unbiased resource for all of these things. And I think that is a massive benefit. And so I was really excited to hear that you're focusing on that, because I think that's a great thing to focus on early on. And
I think going back to relationships, I think that is going to be one of the last things we have left when, eventually AI just takes all of our jobs and, can do it faster than us. I think that's the only human element that we're going to have left that really, can go beyond what AI can do, is the relationship and human aspect of just being there for that person, emotionally connecting with that person through this like big purchase they're doing, or, whatever endeavor it is, an investment, just being there for that person to really just hold their hand through this process. And just I feel like you're wearing so many hats as a realtor, honestly. You could be like therapist, you know, kind of like mom, and yeah, and just having those resources that they need that come up.
Hey everyone, it's Jake, director for the Business of Homes podcast. I hope you've been enjoying today's episode, starting with Shannon's transition from acting to real estate, a direct connection between acting and sales, and how referrals are some of your most valuable currency. When we return, Micheal and Shannon dive into finding the balance of what should be delegated, what makes social media so hard to begin, and the different types of success between full-time and part-time. You don't want to miss it. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at the Business of Homes Pod, where you can interact with us and see some great bite-sized pieces from all of our episodes. For you listeners out there, did you know our entire podcasts are filmed and are on our YouTube channel? Check it out next time you want to see our amazing guests tell their stories. Are you currently watching this episode in video format? Don't forget to follow us on your preferred audio streaming service to take us with you on the go. Lastly, do you have any feedback or want to suggest someone for the show? Email us at thebusinessofhomespodcast@gmail.com. Please enjoy the rest of today's episode with Shannon Surgener. Let's get back to it.
I will say we are probably more capable of having emotional conversations or understanding emotions in today's society than we ever have been. And so we understand the importance of like the emotional caretaking that goes on to like buyers and sellers. But we also are a more educated populace than ever before. We have better access to information and all this kind of stuff. Things that were hidden about financial investing, 20 years ago is no longer hidden. It's all over TikTok or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I've heard a lot of real estate professionals talk about, the role of therapist or shepherd or mom or whatever. And I think it's super important. But if that's where we stop, then we miss, I think, the balance that a consumer is really wanting. And that is, I don't just need mom. I need mom to also like guide me with technical information. I need a willing, emotionally sensitive ear, but I also need that person to flip the script, wear a different hat, and just be like, yes, but I've got you right now with like contractual language or the best title attorney who's going to fight for us in this way or this title policy or whatever. And so this balance between being more capable in the soft skills and at the same time somehow more technical and capable in the hard skills. This is a difficult balance, never before. So it's probably harder to be a real estate agent successfully than ever before.
Yeah, and then you add in the social media piece, which is another part that we've really worked on and focused on this year. Has been my primary focus is really to just step up my YouTube game. But like there's so much that goes into that behind the scenes that people don't see, and that has definitely been, in my opinion, probably one of our biggest values that we can bring to a client for obviously a listing is the social media piece, because not every realtor wants to do social media, and I think that's
they know they should
getting more and more important every
but they
day,
don't always do it.
Yeah.
Because it's a whole world to tackle.
Yeah.
It's a whole world to have to tackle. And it feels kind of like maybe more than I can handle sometimes, because I have to basically do the job that I'm supposed to be good at. Right. I have to have the wherewithal to like keep up with everything around my job. And then I also have to like promote myself on this platform. It's like technical. You have to like shoot videos and audio and
I mean, going back to the parallel with acting, I mean, that's kind of how it became with acting. You've kind of have to be the writer, the producer, the director, and the actor to now create success for yourself. You can't, no longer just be the actor. Like that's not enough anymore. And I feel like it's very similar with being a realtor. You've got to pretty much do it all.
That is a wonderful analogy. I, in my acting days, loved to just show up on set with no additional sort of thought required and just be super present. I love that. But you didn't always get that, especially on some of the smaller films or, stuff that, you're there schlepping, the gear before you're supposed to go on camera. You got to do your own hair and makeup or whatever.
Yeah.
And so you don't always get it handed to you. And I got to shout out to all the wonderful digital marketing and production people, including my own digital marketing people who are making us look good, even right now.
Yeah.
Because it does kind of feel like you have to do all those things. But to be successful, many people who have a polished product aren't doing it alone.
Right.
You know, and I want to make sure I say I'm not doing it alone. Anything you see of me or any of my companies online is being fueled by a team. But initially, as a real estate professional, especially when you're starting out, it kind of feels like, well, I don't have the money for a team. Not only, I don't even know who the team members would be. Like, I got to do it all on my own.
Yeah.
I know you faced a little bit of that.
Yeah. You really have to find that balance between what you're going to hold on to in the beginning and what you're just going to delegate out. And I think that goes back to, not to keep plugging this book, but The Big Leap, you know, because he goes through the quadrants of like, I forget what the other titles of the areas are besides Zone of Genius, but there's another area where it's like, yeah, technically you can do that, but like, is that really a valuable use of your time? Or like, can somebody else be doing that task for you? You know, so I think that that's like a huge thing too.
Definitely feeling a little conviction when you talk about whatever zone that's called, because I feel like there's a number of things in my sort of entrepreneurial life where I feel capable and sometimes maybe more capable than those around me. But it's definitely probably not the best use of my time. It's probably hard for me. A lot of those things, it's like I have to overcome, you know, the roadblocks to quality with just like a lot of effort and time. And that's not always where we need to be. You know, we need to be leveraging by delegating, and that's really hard. I think I've seen enough real estate professionals to know that delegating feels hard out the gate. I don't think you're taught delegating when you're going through real estate school. You need to know all the parts and pieces. So early on in your first half a dozen contracts that you're gonna, you know, be involved in, you know, you feel like you have to do everything because you want to know all the parts and pieces. And so delegating is both equally important and it's terribly difficult to do as you're sort of on-ramping into more of a regular real estate life.
I have a funny story about that. So on my last transaction, we actually at my brokerage have TCs for free, basically. That's
Nice.
just a service that's been provided for us. And so I kind of was like micromanaging the whole thing, you know, and not even realizing it. And the TC's like, well, what do you need me for? You know, type of thing. And I'm like, all right, let me back up and let me like,
I've been there.
like calm it down a little bit, you know, it's going to be okay. But, you know, I definitely think I was trying to overcompensate being newer at this and just wanting to make sure like everything is, you know, like, okay, we can check off that. That's been done.
Oh, yeah. And that's like everybody's story, I feel like, in some respects. Because you're either crashing and burning because you can't keep it all together if you're not micromanaging in the beginning, or you're micromanaging. I don't know if there's any in between.
Yeah.
The people that I see who are most successful at delegating have probably waded through that pool a little bit as well. I know I have. But yeah, the social media piece continues to rear up in conversation as this like very important piece of the puzzle. But there's a lot of misinformation out there. Because it's a world of like polished production, it's not immediately obvious about how to attack the more complicated things. And even if you're just like, I got the writing, shooting, you know, editing thing, there's a larger nuance in like how and when and who's your audience and all that kind of stuff that tends to make this difficult. And real estate is so funny because you kind of need to reach a real estate audience, but then you also need to reach a regular person audience. And so you're kind of fighting this difficult balance between trying to reach two audiences, which usually means watered down and you're not being super successful at either. Have you faced that a little bit?
You know, I haven't really thought about realtors being our audience as much as just really focusing on our demographic, which primarily most of our clients have been investors, like out-of-state investors. But I think ChatGPT has helped a lot with that.
Oh, do tell.
So there are like prompts that you can use in ChatGPT to really get specific on helping ChatGPT help you, basically, so that it can really learn your business, who your target audience is. And so if you can plug in the right prompts, it can really get to learn your business well enough to be able to, one, create some good content ideas, but also like scripts and things like that. So that has saved me a lot of time. Honestly.
Amazing. Looks like I'll be hiring you later to help me with that. No, you're right. It's like insert the Jerry Maguire clip here of help me help you. But I have heard that, you know, ChatGPT isn't a cure-all or a silver bullet. In fact, in a lot of ways, you have to build the relationship, I guess is the language, with ChatGPT so that it can properly and more succinctly help you achieve whatever your goal is. And so that's the future. I don't know if the AI is coming for all of our jobs so much as we're going to see a whole new type of knowledge worker who has the ability to interface with this tool just at a higher level than everybody else. It's kind of like those Photoshop experts out there that are just whiz bangs and can just execute in Photoshop just way better than everybody else. Yeah. I think that's what it looks like. And you're right, specifically because it is about like aggregating large bits of knowledge of like, who's my audience, or who's gonna be the best buyer for this house, or what's the best way to communicate to some of the concerns of a traditional listing client. You can really leverage that larger body of knowledge inside of ChatGPT, so to speak. It's not exactly how it works, but to help you sort of move that direction. I'm interested to see if brokerages, here's maybe a little vision casting for the future. I'm interested to see if brokerages start to bring in ChatGPT experts, almost as if they're bringing in compliance officers and TC, because I think the jig is up at this point. TCs are obviously beneficial. Yeah. They are massive leveraging tools. And for a while, they have been only in existence as sort of these independent mercenaries outside of brokerages. And I think it's so obvious to me that brokerages should be, as they're evolving in their service offerings, be ensuring that TCs are just a natural part. Let us help you stay in legal compliance. Let us help you facilitate paperwork in a transaction. It is becoming more of a winnowing down to focusing on where you can be really great, which is managing your sphere of influence, opening up new doors and leads, and then of course, relationships.
Yeah, absolutely.
So as we're thinking about leverage and all of these different tools like TCs and ChatGPT, you know, the thing that help us get ahead, sometimes we forget that our time and how we spend it is arguably the greatest leveraging tool. You know, like people sometimes who are early in real estate think it's just going to kind of fall into their lap, and they're maybe not quite putting in the regimented time to be successful or to learn the process, or, you know, to fulfill all the different sort of roles and areas of learning you have to do. But time isn't a trade where it's like, just because I'm in the office or making phone calls or knocking doors doesn't mean I'm going to be successful, nor does it necessarily mean I'm going to learn. So our interaction with time, again, early in our careers as real estate professionals, is something that I think a lot of people struggle to figure out. Do I have to be full-time? Can I be part-time? If I'm part-time, can I work in a non-related job? Do I have to work in a related job? Like, do I have to be checking off some sort of boxes of like earned experience, like merit badges? So you've been newer and you've been kind of rising through the ranks alongside other people who are newer. What has been your experience with like how you spend your time?
I think I'd say, so how I have spent my time, number one, is pairing up with a mentor. So that's like, I feel like super huge for anyone new in the industry, is they need to find somebody who's been doing it longer than them and has a proven system that works. So you can kind of plug into that and take from that and see what works for your business. But I think it's also important to like have something that's providing some type of income for you, because I think there's this belief, and it's the same in acting, where it's like you've got to just go full in and you've got to just like jump out the window and just go all in, 100% real estate or 100% acting, don't do anything else. And if you're not willing to like struggle, you know, and be hungry for the success, you're not going to be successful. And like, I think that can work for some people. And I think there's people who've obviously made that work where they're living out of their car and struggling. But like, I've never been able to do that. When I was pursuing acting, I was a single mom, so I had a child to feed. So I couldn't just like struggle. I had to have some type of income coming in. And so I think it's really important to figure out like what works for you personally. And I think for me, I really struggled with that with real estate, where I was kind of comparing my journey to other people's as a new realtor. And I'm like, oh, well, that person just started out and they're already doing X, Y, Z, you know, why can't I do? And so I think it's really important to really think about like what works best for you. And it's okay if you need to have another job, and it doesn't have to necessarily have anything to do with real estate, or it could, and really figuring out what that is for you. But you have to, going back to time management, you really have to be strategic with your time and make sure you're time blocking, or it doesn't work.
Yeah. So what I hear you saying is that the goals we have for success have to be more specifically defined than just full-time, part-time. Those are too general. Or, even number of transactions, isn't going to just magically happen. Like there has to be a greater sense of like, I need to achieve success in this little tiny category because it's a building block towards a larger sort of goal of success. Yes, I too remember. In fact, I quit school in college to go to Hollywood to make my way, and I think now in retrospect, I also believe that if I wasn't like basically living destitute, and I think I sort of somehow self-sabotaged myself to live in my car for a couple weeks because I think I believe that narrative that you had to.
That proves your hunger for it.
Yes, and that someone was going to hear that and somehow believe that you're going to want it more or be able to produce better on camera or something like this. And so that hunger and that fire just made me cold and hungry. Like, I mean, it is difficult to sort of grapple with that. And we're always measuring our current success against other people's, like, quote unquote, future success. Like, they are not always where we are, and no one's guaranteed the same speed or type of journey. And so, I definitely have some biases. Happy to confess that, like, if you're not doing real estate full time, you're not doing it right, or whatever.
Right.
And
I get it, because I think some people need that motivation and that drive to feel like that push of like, okay, I need that pressure. But I'm like, I know myself. I'm naturally an ambitious person. I don't need to feel like I'm not going to pay bills the next month to have that desire. Like, it's already inside of me. So I'm like, I'm going to do the thing, I'm like, I actually feel like I've had more success in real estate, not feeling desperate for the next deal. It's actually made me a better realtor.
Oh, totally.
But some people need that, So, I mean, I'm not saying it's for everyone. I just think it's important for you to figure that out, what that is for you and what system works best for you. And I think not comparing yourself is going to be super huge to other realtors, other actors, but only just comparing yourself to like who you were yesterday or the person that you were. As long as you're continuing to grow in your journey, then you're being successful.
So your license day one, did you launch in full time? Did you try to go more part-time? What
Absolutely
was your journey?
I had a baby right after I got my license.
Oh my
so I did the opposite of what probably most people do.
I'm going to do all the things at once.
I wanted to get my license because I knew once I had the baby that it probably was going to get put on hold for a while because I was going to be busy with taking care of a baby. And so I didn't really start pursuing real estate until probably about like 4 months after I got my license. And then when I did, it was really part-time. I was door knocking in my own neighborhood with my baby strapped to my chest. So
nice.
That's
tug on the heartstrings. Love
right.
it.
And it worked. So no, I technically have not done full-time real estate to this day. I've been a part-time realtor, and that's worked fine for me where I'm at in my life and with my family.
And has it been all part-time with the other part being kind of off, more family focused, or have you kind of taken into the professional world in other ways?
No, just part-time real estate. And then the other remaining part of my day was focused on family. So we really didn't want to we tried to put off doing the whole daycare thing for a while. So the first year we had a part-time nanny. So that was my time, my window to work on my real estate business. And surprisingly, I actually did get some traction despite 2023 being a hard year for, I think, a lot of realtors that are even seasoned. So I started off the first year thinking, oh my gosh, I'm getting my first listing. That didn't happen due to, a lot of sellers who ended up holding on to their house because of low interest rates and, the whole mantra of like, oh, I got a really good interest rate, so I'm going to just keep my house. So it really, I think, delayed a lot of things that I thought were going to be a certain way and wasn't. And so that's why I really encourage new realtors to think about like, what is going to be your way of, making income in that first year, because it might not be what you think it's going to be.
Yeah.
So preparing yourself for that.
Yeah, that is definitely a common theme across a lot of entrepreneurial journeys, a lot of businesses and industries, is that if you're starting something kind of out of the dirt, out of nothing, then there's going to be a hold your breath period. Yes, of course, there's always that lovely beginner's luck in real estate that happens, but there's going to be a hold your breath period. You can't, just think it's all going to hit quick. And even if it does hit quick, it's probably going to dry up quick too. And you're going to have to know how to survive both financially and practically. You're going to have to be in the right headspace. When I was living in LA way back, I finally gave in and was like, I have to get a job to like make some scratch. And so I got a job as a telemarketer. Oh my gosh. And on my very first day, I sold so much stuff that I was like, oh my gosh, this is so easy. And then I never sold another thing for 3 weeks.
Wow.
And I got so down that I just like pulled the ripcord and got out. And my takeaway from that is we have to have a better sense of like what our goals are and like can't get too down on ourselves. But yeah, that hold your breath period was certainly true for me. And it's one of the things I definitely advise anyone getting into any sort of home services company or real estate related thing. Like you have to be able to plan for a much longer term sort of on-ramping period than maybe you think so that you can reach those goals.
Right. And I think your why just becomes so much more important during those lows to know like, what are you actually doing this for? Why is this so important? Because otherwise, it's really easy to just be like, just forget it. I'm just going to go get a job full time or like not do this anymore, which is why I think we have such a low success rate of realtors and actors. It's like that instant result isn't happening fast enough and then they, get out. So.
Well, and to take it full circle, I think that in light of the recent NAR settlement and a lot of the tech disruption that we've seen over the last 10 plus years, the why you are a real estate professional becomes looming in importance. Because are we only in real estate because of money? Are we only in real estate because we didn't have to do maybe as much corporate paperwork or whatever else? Like, there's no guarantees that the money is going to be the same or that that grinding effort isn't going to look a little different or even more of it. And so we have to know our why so that if we're going to be in it, we're going to be in it for the right reasons, despite whatever changes may be coming down the path. And I think that's good encouragement for people who have been in the business 1 month, 1 year, 10 years, whatever it is that know your why, because we're not guaranteed a static environment, a static marketplace. Disruption is around every corner. I should not be surprised, but I guess I continue to be surprised at how much changes have taken place over 10, 12 years. And so it's really exciting to see someone like yourself who has just this great, awesome background, and I feel like you have this great head on your shoulders and how you approach real estate.
Thank you.
I love your success. I know you're going to be more successful. I'm excited to see your journey, and thank you so much for being here today.
Of course. Thank you for having me. This was awesome.
This was great. Well, I want to have you back because we didn't even talk about the fact that you have this great partner that you work with full time, and the way that you guys have formed a duo and the way that you've attacked a locality in an area in a really laser focused way is super admirable. And I think it's a good story for a lot of real estate agents to hear because it is a really clear path towards a certain type of success. And I would love to have you back at some point so we could talk about that.
I would love that.
That's great. All right, everyone. My name is Micheal Conrad. I am a real estate professional here in Middle Tennessee. I'm loving the world of houses and business and how it all intersects. And so I'm grateful to be here telling these stories and bringing people on to tell their stories. So stick with us. Hit subscribe. Hang in for these conversations because we are dropping gold nuggets all the time to help you on your real estate journey. I hope you'll join us. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Hey everyone, Jake again, director for the Business of Homes podcast. I hope you have enjoyed today's episode. A huge thank you to Shannon Surgener for being a part of the podcast. Go follow her on Instagram @_Shannon Surgener and let her know how much you enjoyed their story. Don't forget to subscribe on your preferred listening platform and make sure to follow us on Instagram as well @The Business of Homes Pod. Do you have any feedback or want to suggest someone for the show? Email us at thebusinessofhomespodcast@gmail.com. Thank you again for listening, and we'll see you soon.